Good evening. Tonight we are going to look at a topic on Qingming Jie. Now, Qingming actually started last Sunday, but last Sunday happened to be Easter Sunday. So I prepared a message on near the cross, to commemorate Easter. So tonight we will take time to come and look in more details what Qingming Jie is all about, and what can we as Christians do or not do, and how we can carry ourselves in such a way that we can gain respect from our relatives, from our loved ones, and so that next time when we share the gospel with them, we will not put them away. This is my purpose for preparing this message. And my title for this message is Christian Etiquette and Qingming Jie. First of all, we want to look at two passages of scripture. The first passage is found in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 7. It says, "And the dust returned to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it." Now the Bible clearly states that when man dies, his spirit will return to God. His body will decay and will turn into dust. Just like in Genesis, it was clearly stated, to dust, earth to earth, because Adam was made from dust. And therefore, when man dies, when the spirit, the living breath of God departs from his body, he will be reduced back to dust. And so, burying, and returning to dust is the proper protocol that we accord to all departed souls. And so to give the dead a proper burial, or in this case, in our context, perhaps cremation, is the right thing to do. And once the spirit of man departs from the body, it returns to God. There are two places that man will go. One is heaven and the other is hell. But the body will decay and return to dust. And therefore, in reality, the dead cannot affect the living. No dead can affect the living, because their spirit is already departed. This is the Christian perspective. Now the second passage of scripture we're going to look at is Exodus chapter 20 verse 12. Now it says, "Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land and the Lord your God is giving you." Now, a lot of people have a misconception that Christianity is a religion that has no filial piety. It's not true. The Bible clearly commands us to honor our parents. And honoring our parents is not an instruction, it's a command. And God, in fact, gave a promise and said that whoever honors their parent will have long life. Now, as Christians, I am confident that all of us will really want to observe and obey these important commandments of God. Now, so let's look at Qingming Jie and what we can do and what we should not do, and how can we carry ourselves in such a way that the next time when you share the gospel with your aunt or your pre-believers, relatives and family members, they will not turn you away, they will not be put off, they will not have a negative image about you. Now 2021, this year's Qingming Jie is on April 4th, which was last Sunday. And Qingming is a grand festival for the Chinese to commemorate their ancestors. This is a traditional cultural festival. The custom of Qingming festival are rich and interesting. In fact, there are other activities, they will do participate in the swing, they will go to the suburb and enjoy the beauty of nature. But today, all these activities are no longer emphasized. And so, but with the passage of time, its other activities no longer receive attention. So in the past few generations, only tomb sweeping or visiting the grave is closely related to Qingming. And today when we talk about Qingming, we think about sweeping the tomb, visiting the tomb or the graveyard. Now tomb sweeping or visiting a graveyard involves burning of joss paper, joss sticks, offering of sacrifices, tidying up the tomb like grass cutting and repainting. Now this tomb sweeping has traditionally posed some challenges to Chinese who has embraced Christianity. Now because Christianity teaches us certain things, and this thing seems to come into conflict with our Chinese practice. And in fact, there were times when some Chinese Christians, and because they do not, perhaps we cannot really blame them because they may not have a good knowledge of the Chinese tradition and Chinese culture and also the Chinese religion, and therefore they classify everything together, and they will look at Chinese tradition is all bad, Chinese tradition is all superstitious, and therefore they would not involve or participate in any of all those activities. Now tonight I hope that through this message, to this sharing, we will have the opportunity to segregate, to separate what is religious and what is cultural. Now cultural and religious are not the same. We all need a culture, but we may not embrace the same religion. We can share the cultural value. That does not mean that we must have the same religion. And so we come to the next question regarding Qingming. When Qingming festival comes along, to join or not to join in? Because during Qingming they will what? They will organize certain activities, right? And first of all, let's look. All human beings buried their dead. And this is a universal truth. You go to any country, you will see the living burying their dead. But you never find a cemetery by the animals. You see, animals never have a cemetery. Well, you say, no, today, people bury the dog. Yes, people bury the dog, not the dog buries the dog. Not the cat buries the cat. It's people, the owner of the pet, bury them. So it's a different ball game. But animals never ever set up a cemetery themselves. Only human being. Why? Because human being is made in the image of God. We have the image of God and we have the breath of God. Therefore, we know what is eternity. And that's why we have graveyard, we have cemetery to remember the dead. Now, only human beings remember their dead. You never see a dog in one day have a certain posture to remember the departed, female dog. No, you never see that. And to bury the dead for all mankind is beyond religion. You see, a burial service, to a certain degree, is beyond religion. But there are religious elements in it during the procedure. But the burying itself of a dead is beyond religion. It is human instinct. It is good. And all religion also promotes remembering their dead. Now we need to separate human cultural practice from religious practice. Now tomb sweeping is universal. As I said, it is beyond religion. So when your family members organize to visit the graveyard or the grave of your departed elders, should you join in or not? I think the answer is obvious. The answer is obvious. Yes, we should join. But joining in has implication. Because they will have to purchase the sacrifices, the paraphernalia, in buying all those joss stick, joss paper, and all the other things, the sacrifices. It involves money, it involves costs. And therefore, to join, they would expect you to contribute. Now, and it does have certain religious connotation. And a good Christian will say, Pastor, I cannot contribute, because if I contribute, my money will be used to buy joss stick, joss paper, and the sacrifices. So that this business got true, that is. But let me share with you one principle. And this principle is applying the principle of personal and public responsibility. You see, we have a public duty, we have a private duty. We have a public responsibility, we have a private responsibility. See, privately, when you and I practice our religion, we will not do anything that would displease God. But as a member of a family, as a member of society, we have a larger responsibility. And this is where we segregate between private, personal, and family. When there is a group involved, there is group responsibility. You see, we all share the same mother and same father. Therefore, there is a responsibility towards our parents. So, when our family members organize an event to go and visit the grave, and should we participate? Oh yes! But then you say, Pastor, my money will be used to buy those things. And let me give you a suggestion. You can contribute, but you don't ask questions. You don't ask questions what they buy. You don't ask, how much left behind. I want my money back. I want an account. Oh, don't do that. You just contribute, and if possible, contribute more and not less, so that next time when you share the gospel, they are amenable to hear. And I can tell you this, and from experience, I know I counsel some people, and I've seen certain squabbles and difficulties in the family, whereby because of this issue, the Christian he or she has lost the right to share the gospel with their loved one. Why? Because they would not participate, and their loved one will interpret it this way. Now you see, the Christian will interpret is, my money is used to buy the things that displeases God. But the family member will look at it this way. They will interpret as, you are hiding behind your religion and you want to save money, you are stingy. And next time you want to tell them God loves you. You think they believe you? No, they don't believe you. They don't believe you. They look at you as you have no filial piety. But when you learn to segregate between the personal and the public, private and corporate, so now you contribute money, it's not because you believe in all those paraphernalia, it's just that you know that you are part of this family, you have a responsibility, and therefore you do your part, but you ask no question. And I can tell you this, you will gain respect from your family members, and next time when you share the gospel, they are more amenable to hear you. Secondly, to go or not to go. Now some people will choose never to go to the graveyard of the for the other religion. In English they say die, they also won't go. But is this a good testimony if you don't go? Now first of all, let me speak about the taboos in sweeping tombs. Like when they visit the tomb, the Chinese believe there are certain taboos and as they worship their ancestor. Now see, first of all, outsiders do not participate. If you are an outsider, don't go and participate in other people's tomb sweeping activities. They do not allow pregnant women to go and sweep tombs because they are afraid that perhaps it may affect the baby in the mother's womb. Thirdly, those who are sick and those who are not, their luck are low, is to avoid. Now they believe in their luck, and so you think that if your luck is low, you better avoid. And avoid taking photos during the visit. So in the cemetery they don't take photos. Always today a lot of people take photo, even whoever, whatever religion, they still take photo. But in the good old days, they are afraid that photo taking, for the Chinese, there's this traditional Chinese, they have this misgiving. They thought that when you take the photo, your spirit will be captured in the negative, and they will lose their spirit, and when they lose their spirit, they go mad. They were in trouble. So they do not allow photo taking. Now they also avoid wearing glaring color, bright red and purple. So they wear something more, subtle, maybe darker color, plainer colors, and also avoid for licking and talking, in a very light-hearted way and talking nonsense. They're scared that you speak the wrong word, and then the evil, the dead will pick it up, and then after that something bad will happen. This is what they are afraid. Now we know these taboos, and if you are a Christian, you are visiting the grave together with your loved one, you also try to avoid this taboo. You avoid it not because you believe in it, you avoid it so that not to put them in an awkward position, so that they know that you as a Christian, you know how to carry yourself, you know how to behave, and so you behave and you carry yourself in a matured way. And I can tell you this, although they may not say it in their heart, you will gain respect. Now, what is the motive of tomb sweeping? I listed a few reasons. Now, obviously, tomb sweeping is to remember the dead, right? But besides that, there is a fear of retribution. Now, see, one of the reasons they believe that the dead can impact the living. This is the Chinese belief. Now, earlier on, I already mentioned that the departed dead cannot affect the living because the soul is already with God in either of the places. Right? And the body has decay, dust to dust and earth to earth. So the dead can never impact the living. But not so, because your non-believing family members, they have a different theology, right? So they are afraid of retribution. Secondly, they desire for the blessings from the dead. That's why they pray to the dead. They speak to the dead and tell the dead to bless them. See, they did it. They are doing it in all sincerity. In a way, we don't despise them, but because they really do not know the reality of where the dead go to. And thirdly, is to remembrance. Now, as Christian, we are not concerned or affected by the first two reasons, right? That we know that the dead cannot affect the living. We don't have to worry about fear that they will something bad will happen. No. As Christian, we know that would not happen. But remember the dead. This is the very purpose that we want to visit the grave or the Columbarium. Now we should go because we really want to remember the dead. And fourthly, to do or not to do. While you are at the graveyard, at the tomb, what can you and I do, and what we must at all costs avoid? Now, I think the wisdom is in what we can do and the wisdom to avoid what we should never do. Well, as Christians, as children of God, we cannot just forget the dead in the name of Christianity. Because in time past, there are really some uninformed Christian, maybe some weird Christian, and maybe they are taught wrongly. They are taught by people who does not really understood Chinese culture and rubbish off all Chinese culture, and because perhaps they have a different kind of education, and they don't even bother to find out Chinese culture. And when they hear say, and a lot of times this comes from Western missionaries. You see, the Western missionaries, they love God. We thank God for them. They came to this part of the world to share the gospel with us. But unfortunately, they have a different culture, different tradition. And they don't understand Christian culture. They look at Christian culture and everything is the devil. Everything is bad. Everything is devil and bad. And so when they taught the Bible, so when you come to the Chinese culture, there is a conflict. And they themselves do not know too well. And therefore, but they are teaching. And as a result, many Chinese Christians grew up confused. And they are, in a way, I don't like to, discredit this very good-hearted, God-loving and God-fearing men and women who serve God, who give their life to God, and we thank God for them. But in their ignorance, they have caused a lot of unnecessary troubles and unnecessary hardship. And therefore, if we have the wisdom to understand, take time to study the Chinese culture, take time to study the Chinese tradition, learn to segregate between culture and religion, then we will have wisdom to carry ourselves in such a way that we will gain respect in the eyes of our non-believing relatives. And so we cannot forget the date in the name of Christianity. When visiting the graveyard or the Columbarium, what are the do's and the don'ts? Well, the do's, we can contribute, like I said before, but do not participate in the rituals. Right? They have their, because the ritual is religious. So don't participate in the ritual. But you can contribute, because corporately as a family member, you have a responsibility. But privately as a Christian, you would not want to practice. If given a choice, you would not want to do it. But because you also have a corporate responsibility, therefore you contribute with very clear understanding. And you know why. It's important that you know why. Now when you visit the tomb, the graveyard, you can clean the tomb, right? See, normally after a year or after 6 months, now you see, people don't go to the graveyard every week, you know. We normally go once a year, and sometimes there are some tombs that have been deserted for decades, you know, and they lost the place where they buried their dead. So we can go to the tomb, tidy up, and clean up the tomb. Now, obviously the grass was getting long and wild, so cutting grass is okay. In fact, please bring gloves and please bring your cutter, you know. And we can paint the tomb, because after a year or two, the paint work would have, you know, discolored. And sometimes it discolored, you cannot even recognize the epitaph, because it's very hard to find. You know, they don't have proper address, you know, in the graveyard. And so we need to clearly distinguish our ancestor tombs. So painting it, repainting it is okay. That is not religious. Painting tomb is not religious. You also paint your house. You also paint many other things. Why cannot paint tomb? Tell me, why cannot? Right? The tomb is neutral. You remember, the tomb itself is neutral. It has no religious connotation. All human, all mankind, you know, when they buried, they have tomb. So the tomb is universal. There's no religious connotation. Well, as Christian, while we do not participate in all the other things, we can bring flowers, you know, offer flower as remembrance. Now, you know something? Flower is an international object where they used to honor and remember the dead. Now, oftentimes during maybe certain day in, you know, in the US, in Europe, where they commemorate their loss in the dead, those who have sacrificed their life during the war, you know. So during their servicemen day, or, you know, a commemorate date of all the wartime, you'll find the president, the chief of army, etc. They will present a wreath, a flower wreath, a wreath made of flowers, to the in the cemetery of these lost soldiers who have lost their life for their country. You see, it's an international language. They don't burn offering, they don't do this or that, they bring flowers. So flower is an international language to honor the dead. So we can do that. Now the don'ts. Well, we don't place tomb papers. Now what is tomb papers? Tomb paper is, they have a procedure. When they visit the tomb, the son, you know, the eldest male in the family, will place a paper on the headstone of the tomb. Then the whole service can begin. I remember when I was young, you know, my father passed away when I was 4 years old, and we were non-Christian then, you know, and I wasn't a Christian then, and my father wasn't got the privilege to be Christian. So every year when we visit the graveyard, my mother had to carry me because I was so small, too short. She carried me, and I then placed the paper on the head of the tombstone, on the headstone. And once that is done, then they are qualified to start the procedure. But that paper don't place. You know, that has religious connotation. We don't burn joss sticks or candles, right? We don't need the candle, don't burn the joss stick, because that is for the worship. No offering of wine, you know. they will serve wine and then they offer to the in front of the tomb. Now, I see you don't do that. That we should avoid. And don't kneel before the tomb. Now, kneeling before the tomb and kneeling beside the coffin with the corpse inside are two different things. Now, in my other message, I mentioned before, during funeral, during the wake, we can kneel. As Christian, we should kneel beside the coffin. Beside, I say beside, not in front, beside. Because that's a respect we show to the departed dead, to our parents, to our elders. But now, in the tomb situation, in the graveyard situation, there is nothing there already. Everything returned to dust. The spirit is in heaven, or the other place. Then kneeling would have different connotation. The other kneeling during the wake and funeral is a show of respect to honor your elders. But this will constitute an act of worship. So don't kneel. And don't eat the offerings after the ceremony. You say, oh, I come out money, so I better eat my share. Otherwise I'm at a disadvantaged position. I better eat my equal share. Eat back the worth that I have contributed. No, don't eat the offering. And you don't have to say too much, and you don't have to present yourself as if you're so holy and this thing will impact you. No. You just decline, and they will know, and they will respect you. Now, concerning the Columbarium, we visit the graveyard. Nowadays, it is popular to have the dead cremated. And when they cremate the dead, we will put the ashes in an urn, and then we place it in a Columbarium. Now, there are two types of Columbarium, the Christian and the other religions type, right? Now, for the Christian, I will not, mention it, but concerning the Columbarium of other religion, that when you go and visit, what should you do? What can be done at this Columbaria? Same like when we visit the grave, it's almost identical. Don't participate in the religious aspect. You avoid participating in the religious aspect. You don't burn joss stick, joss paper. You don't offer wine. But you can clean the plug. Now, see, normally in the Columbarium, it's a tiny, cubicle. Sometimes it's a duplex, duplex they have, so that the husband and wife, or maybe another relative, they share one, and there is a plug that states the name, the date of birth, the time, the date of depart, and then sometimes they even add the children's names. But this plug is non-religious. It is an identification piece of stone, without which you don't even know who. So this identification stone has no religious connotation. So you can clean, you can paint, and above all, please don't go empty-handed. You can bring fresh flowers and place it there as a form of respect and remembrance. So tonight, I hope that by listening to this, and I thank God for this opportunity, I can share with you this and some of the insight that I learned throughout many years of pastoring, coming across many Christians who have been bothered, who have faced with confusion, contradiction, guilt feelings, etc. And I have distilled all this, into this message. And I hope that what you hear, what you have heard tonight, will help you to become a more acceptable Christian among your non-believing relatives, so that when they see how you carry yourself as a Chinese Christian, that you know how to segregate between the cultural, the traditional practice, and the religious practice aspect. And when they see that you have this wisdom to segregate, and then you are still performing your task, you continue to show respect and honor for your departed dead, then you will gain respect from them. And at the same time, when you have opportunity to share the gospel with them, they will find it more amiable to hear you out. If not, their ears will be shut, their hearts will be closed, and you would have lost them. And you think about it. Which is the better choice? I believe with all my heart that saving souls is very important and it pleases God. So may God bless us all. And I hope that this message will give you some wisdom and insight so that during Qingming we can carry ourselves in such a way that when people look at us, they can give praise to God. God bless you and good night.